Welcome back to At Your Peak, and this is the final week of our At Your Peak Fundamentals series that we started months and months ago. We will be taking a break throughout the summer and kind of re-envisioning and reimagining what our digital ministries will look like in the fall. But this final week, we felt really, really impressed to hit on the subject of fear and of people of God who live life fearless. I thought, it would be great to kind of go out with a bang and talk a little bit about how we confront fear and deal with fear and understanding real strategies and tools in the marketplace, at home, at church, work, wherever you are, just in your everyday social interactions, learning to live fearlessly. Everybody loves the idea of being brave, bold, and courageous, but it requires fearless people to press through that fear and win. And so I want to talk to you today about fear tolerated that is really faith contaminated. You say, well, is the opposite of fear faith? Yes and no. Fear is really putting your faith in something that negative is going to happen, almost this foreboding spirit thing. But here's what God says about fear. He says, "For God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and love and a sound mind." Now, understanding that not all fear, and we're going to get into this in a moment, not all fear is actually bad. There are forms of healthy fear that protect us. For instance, if I were to go on a field trip to the Grand Canyon and walk up to the Grand Canyon, that's however many miles down, where there's no guardrail, and if I took one step, kind of an Indiana Jones leap into a ravine, unless you're Indiana Jones in that movie, you don't want to do that. Not a good plan. There's a healthy fear that I might fall down. That's not necessarily a bad fear. You have to put it in its right setting. However, if you could cross that bridge and you needed to go across that bridge and there was a support system that you put your faith in, at some point to go from here to there across the Grand Canyon, you would have a support structure. You would still feel fear, but how many know that faith to get you across would be in the support structure, and you would have to confront your fear because fear tolerated is faith contaminated. But if I want to get to the other side, I've got to put my faith in something. This is an important concept for us to understand, and many people have phobias and fears that they need to break through. Here's a little thing about some form of fear here. Phobias, there's actually over 2,000 known fears. This is based on researchers. Most of them are what they call learned behavior. Based on what I've researched, only 2 of them are inborn: fear of falling and a fear of loud noises. Interesting. And I think we understand why a loud noise would cause a little chaos. Well, a phobia is a type of fear, and it's an irrational fear that is held despite contradictory evidence. So let me give you a few examples of phobias. So I'm having fun with this. Technophobia. It's the fear of technology, especially computers. Obviously, I'm not afraid of that. There's nomophobia. These are just random. The fear of being out of mobile phone contact. Some of you have a horrific fear of not having this. Kyonophobia, the fear of snow. Well, if you live in Wisconsin, good luck. No, I'm not making light of that. I mean, there's reasons at time to fear of 24 inches in April. I'm not prophesying that, but Pteronophobia, the fear of being tickled by feathers. Never in a million years could understand that one, but apparently there is a fear of being tickled by feathers. Ablutophobia is the fear of bathing. We'll just let that sit. And homilophobia is the fear of sermons. And we'll let that one sit too. Being a pastor. I just wanted to have a little bit of humor. But honestly, we know that phobias are nothing in some ways to really laugh about. I mean, we're kind of laughing about it here, but when you're in it, it's very real. We need to have empathy for the people. It's very real. It doesn't mean that it's right, but it's still very real. But tormenting, paralyzing fear, we know, is not of God. So maybe the fear of falling off a cliff, if you're close to it, that's a healthy fear, as I mentioned. The fear of the Lord is a healthy respect for his place in your life. It's a good fear. You say, well, I thought we weren't supposed to fear God, although I heard we were, because there's scriptures that say fear God. Right, but what kind of fear are we talking about? Well, let me just go to that. Pakad is a Hebrew word. And there's two types of fears that we're really talking about biblically, the Hebrew words. Pakad is the fear of projected or imagined things. It is the overreactive, irrational fear that stems from worries about what could happen, worst case scenario, etc. Real fear. Really not a healthy kind of fear. And then there, on the other hand, is yirah. It is the fear that overcomes us when we suddenly find ourselves in possession of considerably more energy than we're used to, inhabiting a larger space than we're used to inhabiting. It's this feeling that we're on sacred ground. The Bible talks about it, reverential awe. The word yirah, like when it talks about the fear of the Lord is clean. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. That's yirah. Pakad is I'm afraid. Yirah is this reverential holiness aspect where you're stunned by the goodness of God. Does this make sense? I hope so. There's a different vibe, but they're both a sense of I know my place. I'm standing on holy ground. I think there will be this awe and wonder when angels are saying holy, holy, holy. They are overwhelmed by the awe of his goodness, and they have no other words. It's that kind of reverential fear. But most people, when they talk about fear, are thinking about something different. Well, let me ask you this in a closing question. Have you reduced any specific area of your life to accommodate your fear? And are you willing to challenge that fear by confronting it? So what I mean by that is, let's say I had a fear of flying. And somebody said, hey, Ryan, do you have a fear of flying? No, I don't have a fear of flying. Well, have you flied recently? No, I take a train. Well, why do you take a train? Because I like trains. Oh, well, you could get there faster if you fly. Well, I don't want to fly. Well, how come you don't fly? Because I like trains. But as they begin to press, they might say, well, maybe you're just reducing your lifestyle to accommodate a fear. And that's the moment where I have to get honest and say, wait a minute, I haven't gotten on a plane, so how do I know I'm not pandering to fear? You get what I'm saying? You have to challenge these things. Anybody can say, well, I don't have a fear of flying if you never fly. But the moment you're asked to fly will determine whether you've reduced your lifestyle to accommodate that fear. This can be in any area of your life. And my closing question is, are you willing to challenge that fear by confronting it? Because on the other side of confronting that fear is his amazing grace that opens and unlocks doors to things you cannot possibly imagine, because he's that good. Do it afraid with his grace. We'll see you tomorrow.